So as we look at inequalities of functions, we're looking for where the function or where the graph, in this case, is greater than 0. So remember, on a graph, your f of x is really just another way of saying y. So where are my y values? My y values are greater than 0 here. So they are going to be two parts of the graph. They're going to be this part of the graph and this tail of the graph. But just like when I ask questions about increasing or decreasing, I'm looking for what x values I am putting into the function that are satisfying whatever condition I'm looking for, whether it's increasing, decreasing, or in this case, greater than 0. So my answer is always going to be an interval notation, and I'm looking for these x's right here. These x's are the ones that are going to be greater than 0. So I'm going to use my interval notation to list that, and that is going to be -4 to -1, and I'm going to union that with +3 to positive infinity. Okay, so let's look at another example here. Oops. Let me get rid of some of this. Okay. So if I look at another example, let's look at a quadratic here. So let's say we have the quadratic x squared minus 2x minus 8. Let's do less than or equal to 0. So you know how to graph this quadratic, right? You know how to use, negative b over 2a to find the vertex. So if we do that, we're going to end up with, I'm just going to save us a little time, and we end up with 1, -9. And I'm going to find my x-intercepts my x-intercepts are going to end up being -2, 0 and 4, 0. Sorry, my writing's so messy. So if I graph that on a graph, I'm going to have something 1, 2, 3, 4, and then my vertex is going to be way down here. So if I graph this graph, it's going to look something like this. Okay, so now once I graph it, it's much easier if you please graph the graph or graph the function first and then answer the question. So where am I less than 0? Well, my functions are less than 0 here. So again, I want to use interval notation to describe these x values, right? Because it's all about the x. So my interval is simply going to be, I'm going to use square brackets this time, -2 to +4. Now, why do you think I use square brackets instead of round brackets? So I use square brackets because it had an equal sign. If it's less than or equal to, then then that means it actually includes these 2 points. If I wanted to only know where the x values were or where the function was less than 0, if I just had a function that just had an inequality less than or greater than, then there would be round brackets. So these would be round brackets.